Well, hello, Dr. Natalie Forest. It is so great to have you on BlitzBe today, and I'm grateful that you took time out of your schedule to meet with me today. And as a business owner and as a doctor of history, we know that you have a lot of information and a lot to share. So I just wondered if you could just start out telling us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, first of all, thank you, Monica. We've met for the first time last week, and there was this really nice connection that just spoke to me. So thank you for allowing me this interview, and thank you for what you're working on with BlitzBe. I can see the vision, and I think it's really cool and important. So I want to start out with that. About me, that's always the part that I like the least, because in my world, it's not about me, it's about the mission and what we're here to achieve. That said, I'm originally from Germany, so I have a lot of those traits still. While I'm also what I consider myself to be a human, and that brings together all the other aspects that I have in me, where I really believe that we're all one, we're all living in a global environment where what you do impacts others. And that's how I try to live my life, how I live my life the best that I can. That has filtered in from when I moved over to the United States, pursuing my degree or finishing my degree in history. As a historian, I've learned to really look at the patterns in history. And when I was teaching history, I realized, we all have those epiphany moments, right? We're like standing in the classroom, we're doing our thing. And I realized one time that, yes, I'm teaching history, but I'm really teaching life skills. I'm really consistently encouraging all the students from all walks of life to figure out who they are and be confident and move forward so they can live their dreams. And I think that inspired me, plus some of my friends just saying, stop it, you need to get out into the broader world, to move on and take on this entrepreneurship head and hat, which I never had. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't necessarily want to be up front and center all the time, because I'm actually more of an introvert, or as a friend of mine taught me earlier this year, apparently I'm an ambivert, which means I'm both. I need my time alone, and I'm highly spiritual, which is why I need my time alone. So when I work with people, I really work on helping them reconnect with themselves, not focus on the others as much, because everything starts here. And I do that in life. I do that in business. I do that when I help develop businesses. I do that when I work with some of my clients on what I call soul speaking, speak from the soul, don't try to sell. And that's really who I am. My life's focus right now is not just helping 1 to 10 billion people live their lives their way, but it's really being me and helping my daughter to be herself. My main focus is definitely on helping my daughter explore her path the best way she can, as an example of living my life as well. So that's sort of like the philosophical me.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. So I love what you're talking about and how the whole collective and it sounds like, this is part of your big dream, to be able to really impact more people and unite people. And so, like, if you were to put that big dream in a short phrase, or in a, encapsulate it just a little bit, what is the big dream?
The big dream really is for as many people as possible to be themselves and to live their lives their way. That leads to inner peace, that leads to inner harmony, and that ripples out to everybody. And it's not hard to do in some ways, even though we've been socially conditioned to do a whole bunch of other things. So I usually talk about it takes one step to freedom. It takes the one step to reconnect with yourself. And from there on, that journey, that path begins to light up, and living authentically, I think is what most people would say. To me, it's be you. That's what I always stress. Be you, because if you're not you, you're not living, you're surviving, and that's not why we're here. We all have talents, unique talents, and if we don't live our talents, then we're actually preventing humanity from growing. And what I mean by that is that I see life as a puzzle. And I know you said one small sentence, so I'm giving you like 5 different small sentences. I see life as a puzzle where all of us are a piece of that puzzle. And it doesn't matter whether you are a great speaker, whether you're on TV, whether you are the best mom in the world, the best caretaker in the world, the best cook. Without you as a piece of the puzzle, we're not complete. And so the one step to freedom means that you reconnect with your talents, with your passion. You begin to be you without regrets, and you live your life your way, thereby automatically contributing to the best of humanity.
Excellent. Excellent. That's awesome. And so as we look at all of that and this contribution to humanity and the work that you're doing, what do you see for yourself as your biggest challenge right now as you chase your big dream?
The biggest challenge always seems to be that I say yes. That's the honest answer, because I believe that if an opportunity opens up, say yes. So on the one hand, the biggest challenge is that I possibly say yes too often. Connected to that is, this is going to sound weird, a high sense of loyalty, where I sometimes put my loyalty above my intuition. If my intuition says, you know, you've been doing this for a while, I think it's time to move on, which is a pattern of mine. I'm done, I see I'm done, and then I move on. So sometimes I'm loyal above and beyond, and that can be a challenge if the time is up. But in general, it's just making time for all the opportunities that I have while still giving to myself.
Got it. While still giving and taking care of yourself, because it starts there, huh?
Yeah.
So when we come to thinking about yourself and you, it would be fun to hear a little bit about, okay, so you're from Germany, you got into US history, you got into what you're into. You're here in the United States now. So share a little bit about your story, about what got you to where you are, and maybe some things you learned along the way.
All right, so story time. I was very fortunate, very blessed with the way my mother raised my brother and I. We were raised by a single mom in Germany, and she always taught us to be open-minded. She always taught us that we are very fortunate that we had been given access to education, which pretty much didn't cost a whole lot, if anything, to the ability to travel and meet new people. The history of Germany was very important. So I was raised to be very, very open-minded and be a critical thinker, so that I learned at a very early age to question everything. And that has stuck with me. I got to, even though we didn't have a lot of money, I got to see a lot of other peoples and other countries, because in Europe, everything is closer and you could almost drive everywhere. So that was really the starting point. And then something within me got me more interested in people and issues that are officially titled equality. So when I started to look more and more into history, which to me is not about dates and all of that, it's about people, because people make history. So I've always had that affinity for people, history coupled with psychology, coupled with philosophy. And that got me into this. And very early on, I tried to understand the dichotomy, the opposition of the USSR and the USA. So I studied both of those. And I wanted to figure out what was going on until the professor at the university, who was awesome when it came to the Soviet Union history, he retired and they didn't replace him, so I had to make adjustments. So I ended up focusing on US. That led me to a scholarship, that led me to try to continue my studies in the US, because my focus was African Americans in the Vietnam War and the issue of equality. You can see, you know, skin color, German, all matches up. But that was my focus. Had a lot of experiences at the various universities, 3 universities in the US, all of which I did not like much. And that might just be because it's very much a system based on paying and not necessarily really on looking at individual skills. And that's a different story, but I feel very passionate about changing education. That led me to a job at the State Department initially. And from there, I moved on to become a history professor at a local community college, because I wanted to help people who were not already fortunate to have access to everything. And there I broadened my spectrum even more to focus not just on African Americans, but women, Native Americans, and all of that, because as I said before, it's all a big puzzle, and therefore we're all needed. And the psychology of why people do what they do fascinates me. And from there, I got married. That didn't work out. I got divorced. That worked out. And then I got remarried. And now I have the most amazing child in the world, who is just mind-blowing and who is the biggest blessing of my life. And I treasure that every day. And I'll see where we go from here, while I'm trying to motivate, inspire, and give people the skills to live their dreams. It has opened up so many doors that I never thought of. And I'm now able to use my different skills. My spiritual side, which was my first business, was all spiritual. People got scared. So I moved more into life coaching, combining them. And, now I do transformational life and business coaching. In that, the experience was very varied. The worst experiences I had, I think, and I still treasure them, but using the official language, was hiring coaches that wanted me to do their thing. They didn't see me. So I had my experiences with about 3 of those, spent a lot of money on those. And that taught me to really rely more on my intuition. The reason why a lot of entrepreneurs don't succeed is not because they're not capable. It's because they're working on doing something that somebody else recommended them to do. And so I learned that, which is why nowadays I recommend to everybody, before you hire a coach or a consultant or an expert or a mentor, whatever term you want to use, make sure you resonate with them. They don't have to be miles ahead of you. Maybe they're just a few steps, but you need to have synergy. Just because they sound good doesn't mean they are good. And they hear you. That's the most important piece. So I had a long learning lesson in that. So that nowadays, I've moved my business back in the in-between realm of spiritual and non-spiritual, because there are 2 aspects of me. One is the analytical. So when I work on your business, it's all analytical. That's how I became the CEO of a SaaS company. It's like, okay, I can look at it and I can tell you we need to do this. That's the analysis, the historical side. And then on the other side, I also can say, well, this is my intuition. There's something off here. And that, of course, applies to life and my own business. So I have both sides to me, which I treasure. And I can use both of them very successfully. So that now I find myself as a CEO of my own company, the CEO of a SaaS company with an amazing product for entrepreneurs. And then I was just asked to earlier this year to be a columnist for the Los Angeles Tribune. That has now evolved into me producing more events, which I had done for years anyhow. And now I'm the VP of operations there. I'm also working on International Women's Day as a VP of operations. So it's like, okay, there's a path that is very clear in front of me with how I can use my skills to best impact those 10 billion people and inspire them, motivate them, and give them the skills to live their lives and not do what somebody else tells them to do because it fits that other person's idea. And I think the hardest thing really for me is saying no sometimes and not over giving. Actually, realizing what I'm providing, and for some of us that's an issue, charging what you're worth. I'm still sometimes dealing with that.
Gotcha. I hear you in that one for sure. I think as women, that's that, and maybe that's not fair for me to say, but I resonate with that. And I shouldn't say that because I'm a woman, but I do resonate with that. Maybe that's part of my story too. So when we're talking about inspiring people and supporting people, and then you talk a little bit about looking at yourself and making sure that you're doing your self-care. Obviously, we're in this time of this pandemic right now. And so things are different than they've ever been. And not just different for us as individuals, but different for us in a whole world. And so, like, what kinds of things would you recommend for people to do to support themselves during the pandemic? Or what strategies, or is there a core strategy that we could be using for ourselves to support ourselves and then support our families at this time?
Oh, absolutely. And let me start out by saying that every recommendation I ever make in life or in business is something I have gone through, done, experimented with myself. So I don't just espouse theory, I've actually done it. And I think that's important, and I want to stress that, because when I talk about self-care, I came from a relationship that wasn't working, and I had lost myself. And that goes for men and women. We all go through that sometimes. So I had to make time for me. So for the last, 15, 20 years, I can honestly say, because I took those steps, I know who I am. And it's a little process, of course, to realize, whoa, what's going on. The relation or the connection to the current pandemic is that, to me, it's a reawakening to who we really are and why we are here. And it is huge. So many of us have lost focus on what life is all about. Especially in the US, it's been for a long, long time about chasing the next sale, getting the next bigger house, getting the next bigger car. It's capitalism at its best. And there may not be anything wrong with capitalism, but it's all stuff. And is our life really about stuff? So during this time of the pandemic, aside from the fact that most other countries in the world seem to be dealing with it differently and maybe more successfully than the US, just looking at numbers, what I think it required us to do is to take that first step to freedom that I talk about and reconnect with ourselves. It was all of a sudden, we couldn't just go out and spend money. We couldn't just lose ourselves in crowds. We couldn't just go to the grocery store and buy stuff. We actually had to think about, what am I buying? Do I really need this? And because some of us had experienced a lockdown, it was like all of a sudden you were home in the same place with everybody that was supposedly your family, right? And that could have been a rude awakening for some people, because normally people come home and it's like, okay, dinner's on the table, watch the news, watch a TV show, go to bed. There was no real communication happening anymore. But after you've done all of your Netflix, after you've done all your HBO for 2 months, you're done with the TV. And you actually have to face not just yourself, but the other people that you're living with. And that, to me, is the big thing of what this is all about. Reconnecting with yourself, turning all this stuff off. I know all of us are now on Zoom and StreamYard and all the other platforms, but we're alone. We actually have to figure out who we are. And that is the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. And that this pandemic, in addition to all of the losses and the grief and the horrific things that we're going through, the pandemic has opened up the door for us, has given us the time to be with ourselves. For many people, that's scary, which is why they do all this stuff. But being with yourself is the only way that you can realize your purpose, realize why you're stressed and not happy, and do something about it. So to me, the first step always is to make time for you to be with you. And that doesn't have to mean that you sit down in a prayer or meditation position that some guru told you you have to do. I mean, I meditate every day, but there are various forms of meditation. Just take time for you to be with you. That can be getting up half an hour early and having a tea with yourself, with nobody else, no radio, nothing. It can mean you taking an early morning walk with your dog. It can mean you going to the gym. I don't care what it is, but setting up the day right, setting up your day with you is the very important first step. And beginning to realize how you talk to yourself. It's not about getting rid of all the thoughts, but realizing all the stuff that's going on all the time. And then starting to pick out, well, where does this come from? Where does this come from? When you begin to make time for yourself in the morning, and I can say in the morning because I'm not a morning person, and I did it. I got up like at 5:30 every morning for 2 years just to figure out who I was, okay? And that's the first thing I do even now. I get up 15 minutes before anybody else in this house, so I am with me. And then during the day, I do the same thing. In the evening, I take time for me. Whether I journal, and I tell all my friends and my clients, journal in the evening, to let it all out. So in the morning and in the evening, be with you. Even if in the evening it's just 10 minutes, but shut everything down, be with you. I actually had a conversation about that with my daughter just about somewhere in the middle of summer, where she was so into video games, which is really not her thing normally, but it's an escape right now. And we limit that. But she was like in bed and all of these things kept coming up. And I said, okay, honey, I now want you to shut that down. So now we have this code that we use where we say, okay, 5 minutes before bed, we're just going to shut all of those programs down and we're going to take a deep breath. And that helps her sleep. That helps everybody sleep. And for people like me, I journal or I meditate. But it's really crucial to get all that stuff out of your head before you go to bed, or you will not sleep. So I think the pandemic in that way has opened us up to having to reconnect with ourselves, reevaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it, and realize who we're living with. And that's not always good, that's not always bad, but it requires us to take a look at it and then figure out, without loyalty issues, what is best for me, and go from there. So in that sense, I think the pandemic definitely is a reawakening in the best sense of the word, because we have not made the time without this huge wake-up call.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And I love that. I love the get up early and journaling is something that I love to do also. And I use a gratitude, right when I get up too. So what are the 10 things I'm grateful for? And then before I fall asleep, what are the 10 things I'm grateful for? And just continuing to bring in that gratitude also into my journal and into my meditations. And that's awesome. Thank you. And it is great to hear a different perspective about the pandemic and from your perspective of that spiritual perspective. And what I also wonder is, as we look forward, we know we're in this pandemic right now. We know that it will end. There will be an end to it, and things will shift and change and fall into place differently. So what, as you move through your business and your big dream, what is the story that you would like people to be telling about your business in 12 months from now?
12 months from now. I think all I really care about is that people get some kind of action takeaway, some kind of skill that I was able to either bring to them or remind them of, so that they were able to start moving into embracing and loving themselves more. I think that's what I want for everybody. And if I can be some kind of vessel for that, I would love to be called a vessel for reconnection to self-love, I guess.
Excellent. Awesome. So who is it that, who would your target community be to be able to find you, to be able to say that you're the vessel of reconnection for them?
As a business coach, business development coach, I should tell you, you need a niche. In my own life, I don't have a niche. So anybody who feels stressed and realizes that something is off in their lives, okay? In other words, usually it's a person that is considered to be in a midlife crisis, which can happen at any point in life. And most of the time, I actually do end up working with women just because of the history of the status and focus on women. But I also work with a lot of men who also go through midlife crises and have been taught to not be vulnerable. So anybody in a midlife crisis, male, female, whatever age that comes in, those are the people who are usually drawn to me, or young people because of my focus on education.
Awesome. So business owners who are struggling and who are looking for maybe a shift and a transformation in their business and some support in that transformation.
If you're in business, if you have a small business right now, the statistics are that only about 76% of all small businesses, make it to year 10. And that is why they're still only making about $250,000 a year. Okay. But making it to year 10, 76% are actually not making it. I misspoke. They're not making it. So think about how many people are not making their dream a reality. And it's not their fault. It's usually that they missed a step somewhere, or that they're trying to copy somebody else. So it's really important for entrepreneurs to reflect and say, okay, why am I doing this business this way? And that's where, when it comes to entrepreneurs, where I hope I can say, okay, breathe, take a look. Is that your dream? Is that your path? Or are you using this strategy because somebody else told you to? If you're not making your dream your business, then you're not going to succeed. I've been there. So you're not going to succeed unless you're all in.
Right on. And that's the commitment part, I think, for me, for sure, as I'm listening to you as the person who's interviewing you, but I'm also listening to you as a business owner, and I'm listening to you as a woman, and I'm just fully with you right now. And it's so fun to be this present with you. And as I hear you, I'm hearing so many different things, about being a business owner, and then also about commitment. Mm-hmm. And it isn't about a story in our head. It isn't about a feeling that we have, and it isn't about something that trips us up. It's about, where's your commitment, and constantly moving forward to that commitment. And no matter what shows up and those things that come and are standing in our way or are holding us back for some way, that we get to look at, okay, where's my commitment and what's standing in my way, and how do I transform that so that I can keep moving?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you use the word commit, because that's one of my favorite words when it comes to leadership as well. Because everything that you just mentioned, you know, woman, entrepreneur, life, it's all about self-leadership. And self-leadership, as well as leadership of others, has to do with human commitment. You have to first commit to yourself, not everybody else. You have to commit to yourself. Put that, as you said, into your dream, into your business, into your family, into your life. So it's really, really important that you have that human commitment for yourself and then for everybody else around you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, it has just been a joy hearing from you and learning more about you and just being with you, for sure. So I have one more question. This is possibly the most important question. How can I serve you?
I think you're already doing that, because you're letting me talk in an interview version and share my mission. That to me is an enormous gift, because not everybody's open to that. So for right now, that's an awesome service, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you asking.
Yes, awesome, awesome. Well, before we go, can you tell our listeners, how can people get a hold of you? How do they reach you? What's the best way to get you, to be able to reach out to you?
I'm very easy to find, at least I think so, because everything is pretty much under my name, which is Natalie Forest. So natalieforest.com is my website. Working on it, but you know, that's a good way to reach me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's always my name, and I try to respond to everything as soon as I get it. So I'm very open to communication.
Well, I am so grateful that you took this time out of your day to be with us. Thank you so much. And I've learned so much and have had a fabulous experience. And so I just want to say thank you and have a great day.
Well, thank you. You too.
Awesome.